Good evening. Welcome back to another live reading of Hank the Cowdog, Let Sleeping Dogs Lie by John R. Erickson, Chapter 8, On Trial in the Horse Pasture. Now, Ralph and I had left and made our way back towards headquarters. I hobbled down the creek a ways, and I came up to a place where the horses had worn a path up the hill. Then I dragged myself up to the top. I'd come down that hill a lot faster than I was going up, which explained why I was hobbling and limping so bad. I sure was sore. I'd gone down that hill too fast. I got to the top of the hill, I stopped to catch my breath, and I rest my weary bones and let the wind blow my ears into a little flapping motion. Down below, I could see Ralph making his way down the creek to a man who was doing fishing by the bank. Ralph and his big ears had certainly ruined my case. Just when I thought the clues were lined up and moving full speed ahead, he started yapping about fresh, young, tender, juicy, larruping good chicken. Oh, never mind, just never mind. There was just something about those words that just... Oh, never mind again. I started back to headquarters, getting to the ditch beside the road, and a big tank truck came a-barreling through, blowing dark smoke out of his two chimney stacks above the cab. Under ordinary circumstances, I would have barked him up and down the ranch, but I was too sore to get myself up into a good mad. I just sat in the ditch and glared at him as he roared on by. I went on down the road, limping and counting my miseries when I heard hoofbeats in the distance. I looked around, saw the entire horse herd headed my way, the work string as well as the brood mares. I hoped they were going to the water and hadn't seen me, and I crouched down in the grass. I got no use for horses, just don't like them. They have a superior attitude, you see. It makes them hard even on good days, and so far this hasn't been one of those good days. They came kicking and bucking down the hill, and I stretched out flat on the ground, directing all my powers of concentration into making myself invisible. Now, horses don't have good eyes, don't you know, and they can be fooled. The next thing I knew, I was surrounded by 13 horses, which just goes to prove that sometimes horses can't be fooled. I didn't move. I just rolled my eyes around the circle of horse heads. You don't realize how big they are until you have 13 of them standing around you, looking down on you. I figured maybe they had seen me and there was no use trying to hide anyone. Afternoon, I said. Silence. Then a stocky bay horse named Casey spoke up and said, "Puppy, you know where you are?" I looked around. Let's see, there's the barn over there. You in the horse pasture, son. You in our place. You in trouble. That's so. I pushed myself up into a sitting position. Well, maybe you don't remember who I am. You're the ranch mutt, ain't ya? No, you're thinking of Drover, little stub tail, little white dog. No, I'm thinking of you, puppy. In that case, you must know that I'm Hank the Cowdog, head of ranch security. For some reason, they all laughed. Did I say something funny? Casey wore a sneer. on his big flappy mouth. Son, you may be a hot dog over on your side of the fence, but you're in horse pasture now. And in the horse pasture, hey, if you ain't a horse, you ain't nothing. Well, that's just your opinion, of course. In my circles, we think the opposite. Casey bent his head down. Explain what that means by that. Well, we often say that if you ain't nothing, you can't possibly be a horse. I'm sure you'd go along with that. He gave me a blank stare. Then he grinned and exposed 2 rows of the biggest teeth I'd ever seen. But the point is, you're in the wrong place. We don't like dogs. Now, I can understand that. I've met a few that I don't like either. There's good and bad in every breed. I'm sure you'd go along with that. He shook his head. Or maybe you wouldn't. I was beginning to feel a little bit lonesome there in the middle of all those horses, and I figured it was time to check out my escape routes. Appeared to me that every exit passed between horses' legs, and that wasn't too encouraging. The guy could get his back stepped on trying to escape, which is probably why the old-timers used to say, don't put all your backs in one exit. Might get stepped on, you see. You know what we do with dogs that get over into our pasture? No, I don't. Maybe I should point something out here. We bite them. We push them around with our noses. We step on their tails. Well, maybe you've forgotten that I have clearance to work this entire ranch, including the horse pasture. Casey looked around the circle. All right. Y'all, we got us a dog here, accused of trespassing. The court is now in session. Now hold on just a bit. Does the defendant have anything to say? I stood up. Yes. As a matter of fact, Sit down, son. The defense rests its case. No further questions. Now let the prosecution present its case. Now, a big brown horse named Popeye stepped out. He's guilty. You sure? Yep. Casey looked down at me and shook his head. Puppy, evidence in this case is just overwhelming. I looked around to the circle of all the eyes and all the horses stamping their feet and swishing their tails. I pinned my ears back and growled, "You can't get away with this." That was the best I could come up with. Casey turned to all his pals. After hearing all the evidence in this case and giving this pup a fair trial, we find him guilty of trespassing in the horse pasture. What shall the sentence be? Bite him! Bite him! Bite him! By this time, the hair was standing on my back and keep growls rumbling in my throat. I'd advise you guys to keep your distance because the first horse that, at that very moment, one of the horses behind me bent down and bit me on the bohunkus. I jumped straight up and squalled, turned around and bit him right on the nose. Another one got me on the back. I nailed him too, but by George, this time they were coming at me from all directions. I was, by George, surrounded, and while I'm fairly comfortable with odds of 5 or 6 to 1, this fight showed signs of getting out of hand. It was high time for me to shuck out of there and just get the heck away. I tore into them. Knocked 3 or 4 of them over. and to the ground. Literally crawled and gnawed my way through to daylight. With 3 head of horses on my tail, I sprinted across toward open ground and toward the horse pasture and ducked under the barbed wire fence just in the nick of time, headed towards the house. Whew! With the fence between us, I turned to Casey and Popeye and all the others. "Let that be a lesson to you." They laughed. "Next time you won't get off so easy." They laughed even harder. There's no future in trying to talk to a bunch of dang smart-alecky horses. I made my point and throwed a good scare in them, and I didn't have time for any more foolishness. I had work to do. It took me a good 5 minutes to lick down all of the spots where they had bit me, and my hair was just beginning to stand up. There was one place in the middle of my back and that just wouldn't quite go down. I bent my neck as far around as I could, but I couldn't get it. No matter how far I stretched my tongue to its maximum length, I walked around in circles trying to get a good lick on it. But every time I moved, it moved, and managed to stay just a few inches beyond the reach of my tongue. This was very frustrating. I try to keep my coat neat, don't you see, and I don't like to go around looking like the rats had chewed on me all night. I chased that darn spot until my tongue got tired and my head was started spinning. Never did get to roll in some of that mud to soothe it down. Well, I hopped up and gave myself a good shake. Scratched the spot below my left ear, tried to recall what I'd been working on before that maniac cowboy hit me with his pickup door and knocked me into Spook Canyon. Let's see. Ralph, the mailman, the horses, Beulah. Mercy me. I could still see her gorgeous collie ears flapping in the wind alongside the pickup, her perfect little collie nose, and her brown eyes melting in adoration as she watched her hero perform death-defying tricks that no ordinary dog, especially Plato, could have matched. Why, at that very moment, she was probably gazing into the distance and sobbing, wondering if the love of her life had survived his plunge off the cliff. No doubt she tried to leap out of the pickup and rush to my side, but Plato had stopped her. I could almost hear it. "No, Beulah, I can't let you do this." "Let me go. He needs me." "But you could be killed jumping out of a moving pickup." "Better to die in love than to live in anguish. I leap now into the great unknown to join my beloved cowboy who lieth wounded and bleeding and calleth my name." "Don't be foolish, Beulah." "Unhand me. I must go." "No, I can't allow it," etc., etc., etc. Actually, Plato was probably right in stopping her. She might have broken a leg jumping out of the pickup. It's amazing what a woman in love will do. And just think, she was ready to do that all just for me. Kind of makes a guy wonder what it is about himself that gets the ladies so stirred up. Good looks are part of the answer, but there's bound to be more to it than that. Well, in the midst of those delicious thoughts, when it suddenly occurred to me when I'd left my post several hours ago, I'd been involved in a very serious investigation, the case of the missing chickens. Ordinarily, I was not easily distracted, and yet I had been distracted easily. Well, I'd wasted enough time with women and jailhouse dogs and horses and a mailman. I had work to do, and fellas, I had suspects to interrogate. and the murderer to catch. And so ends tonight's episode of Hank the Cowdog Let Sleeping Dogs Lie. Tomorrow night, Chapter 9, Drover Confesses. Okay, you guys, we'll be signing off now. Remember, love one another, be kind, and be safe. Want to see you again. Bye now.